Hello there, lovely people, it's Alex from Nintendo Life here. Now, if you've been playing Breath of the Wild and looking around on the map, you may have noticed that some places seem to be named after other things from the Zelda series. And there is not just a few of them, there are loads of references to previous Zelda games scattered all over the map in various different places. They're generally of no real significance, but it's nice that they're there, it's nice to just have those little nods back. And so we decided to talk you through all the myriad ones that we managed to find. We're certain there are ones that we've missed, so if you have noticed some that we haven't, then please let us know what they are in the comments down below. We're going to group them by game, and we're going to start off with the biggest game, the most represented game in Breath of the Wild, which is, of course, Link's Awakening for some reason. So let's get on with it. From Link's Awakening, we have Tal Tal Peak, which is obviously referencing Tal Tal Heights. We have Ulria Grotto, which is referencing Ulrira, the telephone guy. Ukuku Plains is referencing Ukuku Prairie. Peak of Awakening is, well, it's referencing the game. Marlin Bay is a reference to Marin, one of the key characters in the game. Gapongo Island is a reference to Gapongo Swamp. Torombo Beach is a reference to Torombo Shores. Koholit Rock is a reference to Koholint Island, where the game takes place. Mabe Village Ruins is a reference to Mabe Village. Tarin Wetland, we believe, is a reference to Tarin. Martha's Landing is Martha Bay. Mount Tarin is, we think, another reference to Tarin, but that one is a little bit looser. And again, Tarin Pass, we think, is Tarin. Canalet Ridge is Canalet Castle. Rock Woods is referencing Rock's Feather, an item in the game. And Tabal Woods is a reference to the Tabal Wasteland. Moving on swiftly to Ocarina of Time, we have Mido Swamp referencing Mido from the Kokiri. We have Lake Saria, which is also referencing a Kokiri, namely Saria. We also have Mount Naburu, referencing Naburu of the Gerudo. We have Darunia Lake, referencing Darunia of the Goron. We have Ruto Mountain, referencing Princess Ruto of the Zora, as well as Ruto Lake and Ruto Precipice. We have Jaabu Ridge, which we believe is referencing Jabu Jabu. Over here we've got Inogo Bridge, which is a reference to Ingo, the infamous farmhand from Lon Lon Ranch. We also have Rauru Hillside and Rauru Settlement Ruins, which is referencing Rauru, the Sage. We have Kapora Pass, which is a reference to the infamous owl Kapora Gabora. And finally, we have Bonuru's Stand and Pierre Plateau, which are both a reference to the scarecrows in the game, which I admit I had to Google. Now onto one of my favourite games in this series, The Wind Waker. We have Mecca Island, which is referencing Makar, the lovely little Korok who is the Sage of the Wind. We also have Lake Mecca, which is referencing the same thing. And we also have Tingle Island, Ankle Island, Knuckle Island, and Davdi Island, which are referencing Tingle, Ankle, Knuckle, and David, who are all brothers except David of Tingle, and Tingle himself obviously, David just being some bloke who was sort of roped into things. And rather cheekily, we've also got Jaabu Ridge again, which we think may be a reference to Jabun, although Jabun is, we think, a reference to Jabu Jabu, so that kind of is, and of itself, it's complicated, but let's move on. And lastly, we have Mount Daphnis, which is a reference to Daphnis Nohansen Hyrule, also known as the King of Red Lions. Next, we have Phantom Hourglass, and first of all, we have Linebeck Island, which is a reference to Linebeck, who's one of the key characters in the game. We have Mersey Island, which is the name of the island that Link wakes up on in the game. We have Zuaz Island, which is named after the smith that helps you forge the Phantom Sword. We have Banan Island and Molida Island, which are both islands in the game. And Lake Celia, which is named after the fairy in the game called Celia, with a C. Representing Majora's Mask, we have Mikau Lake, which is referencing Mikau, a Zora in the game. We have Lulu Lake, which is another Zora from the game. We have Lake Darman, which is referencing Darmani, who is a Goron in the game. We have Romani Plains, referencing the adorable little Romani, who looks an awful lot like Malon, but let's not get into that. And lastly, we have Gero Pond, which is a reference to Don Gero, the frog conductor, who's also another Goron. Coming in with Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons, we have Horon Lagoon, which is a reference to Horon Village from Seasons, Tarm Point, which is a reference to Tarm Ruins, again from Seasons, and Lodrum Headland, which is a reference to the entire world of Seasons, called Holodrum. We've also got Talus Plateau, which is a reference to Talus Peaks from Ages, and finally we've got Brinna Plain, which is a reference to La Brinna, which is the world that Ages takes place in. Only 4 references from Twilight Princess, and that's Rutala Dam, which is a reference to Queen Rutella, Ralis Pond, which is a reference to Prince Ralis, which was her son, both of course being Zoras. We have Faron Woods, which is a reference to Faron Woods. We weren't going to include this because it looks kind of obvious and may actually be the same Faron Woods, but it's far too jungly to be the original Faron Woods, so we threw it in anyway. And lastly, the same sort of thing, the Bridge of Elven. It's not the same Bridge of Elven, but it's still referencing the Bridge of Elven. From Skyward Sword, we have Gorko Lake, which is a reference to Gorko, who's a Goron archaeologist. We have the Pillars of Levia, which we believe is a reference to Leviath the Leviathan. And we also have Gortram Cliff, which is a reference to Gortram the Goron. From the Minish Cap, we have Minishi Woods, which is a reference to the Minish, one of the main species in the game. And we also have Pico Pond, which we believe is a reference to the Picori, which is just another name for the Minish. From A Link to the Past, we have Sahasra Slope, which is a reference to Sahasrara, the unforgettable wise old elder of Kakariko Village. From A Link Between Worlds, we have Orin Bridge, which we believe is a reference to Queen Orin, which was the giant river Zora who became a sage later on and was kind of sort of bloated and everything. And very, very finally, a reference to the very recent Triforce heroes, we have Tuft Mountain, which we believe is a reference to King Tuft, the king of Hytopia. And there you have it. What an absolute marathon of different places. It's such a nice thing to see in Breath of the Wild, and it really gives everything a little bit more history from the Zelda series, and I don't really know what I'm talking about. I just didn't know how to end this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you sit there and list out the names of all the different subscribe buttons that you've ever seen, their channels, and what channels they're referencing to, and be sure to check out nintendolife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.